If you look at the modern landscape of philosophy, there is one towering, unquestionable idol: Stoicism. We are constantly handed the ancient texts of men like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca. We are told that Stoicism is the ultimate blueprint for human resilience. We are taught that if we can just detach from our emotions, if we can just build a heavy, impenetrable fortress inside our own minds, we will become invincible. We are told that Stoicism is the philosophy of the strong. But if you look closely at the architecture of the modern world, a terrifying pattern emerges. The people who most aggressively push this philosophy onto the masses, the billionaires, the politicians, the architects of the modern economy, are the exact same people who control the heavy, crushing weight of the physical world. They are not handing you a blueprint for freedom. They are handing you a blueprint for compliance. The West did not resurrect Stoicism to liberate the human vessel. They weaponized it to protect a rotting foundation. To understand this dark alchemy, you have to look at who actually poured the concrete. In the year 161 AD, Marcus Aurelius became the Emperor of Rome. He was the most powerful human being on the face of the earth. He commanded massive armies, controlled infinite wealth, and held the power of life and death over millions. While sitting in his heavy war tents, he wrote Meditations, a diary detailing how a man must accept his fate and remain completely unbothered by the external world. Today, we read this as a guide to peace. But look at the structural reality. It is incredibly easy to tell the world that external wealth and physical circumstances do not matter when you literally own the entire earth. The Stoic philosophy was deeply loved by the Roman elite because it is the ultimate philosophy of the status quo. It teaches that the architecture of society, the extreme wealth, the poverty, the wars, is simply the natural, unchangeable weather of the universe. The absolute core of Stoic teaching is a concept called the Dichotomy of Control. Stoicism demands that you draw a heavy line in the sand. On one side are the things you can control, your thoughts, your judgments, and your reactions. On the other side is everything you cannot control: the actions of the rulers, the distribution of resources, the decay of the earth. The Stoic master tells you to completely surrender the external world and focus entirely on your internal fortress. This is the exact architecture of your containment. If an elite ruling class can convince you that your physical suffering, your exhaustion, and your poverty are simply external events outside of your control, you will never raise your hands to tear down their walls. If they can convince you that your misery is caused purely by your own failure to perceive things correctly, they completely insulate themselves from your anger. Stoicism is the ultimate shield for a broken empire. It convinces the oppressed that rebelling against the physical cage is useless, and that true victory is simply learning how to sit quietly inside the dark. This is exactly why the modern architects of our society are obsessed with pushing Stoicism today. We live in an era where the foundational soil of society is completely poisoned. The cost of survival is crushing, the physical communities are severed, and the human vessel is exhausted. But instead of fixing the poison soil, the elites hand you a book on Stoicism. They tell you to meditate. They tell you to take ice baths and practice resilience. This is the privatization of human agony. They take the massive structural failures of the world and place the entire heavy burden directly onto the solitary human vessel. If you are exhausted, it is not because the environment is designed to drain your vital energy. It is because your mind is weak. If you are anxious, it is not because you are living in an unnatural, isolating monolith. It is because you lack philosophical discipline. They use Stoicism to turn you into a shock absorber for their failing empire. To ensure you never try to rebuild the world, Stoicism deploys a heavy, paralyzing anchor called Amor Fati, the love of your fate. You are instructed not just to endure the brutal conditions of your life, but to actively embrace them as necessary. You are told to love the heavy burdens placed upon you. But there is a terrifying consequence to loving a rotting foundation. If you convince a starving vessel to love their starvation, they will never plant new seeds. Amor Fati kills the horizon. It convinces you that imagining a better, heavier, more beautiful world is a philosophical weakness. It tells you to stop looking at the sky and simply accept the mud beneath your feet. To make sure this compliance is absolute, the Stoics teach you to retreat into the inner citadel. You're told to build walls inside your mind so thick that no one can hurt you, disappoint you, or disturb your peace. But a citadel is a fortress built for one. When you retreat entirely into your own mind, you violently sever your roots from the rest of the human forest. The elites want you in the inner citadel because they know the ancient truth of the earth. You cannot overthrow a dying empire alone. If every single human vessel is locked in solitary confinement inside their own head, there is no collective gravity. There is no shared current. A forest of isolated, unfeeling pillars poses absolutely no threat to the woodsman. Why do the Stoics demand the complete death of the passions? Why are you told to suppress your profound anger, your deep grief, and your outrage? Because human emotion is not a weakness. It is a heavy, elemental fire. Throughout all of human history, profound collective anger is the only current strong enough to wash away a corrupt foundation. The sudden, violent refusal to accept suffering is what breaks empires, abolishes chains, and forces the earth to change. The architects of the modern world are terrified of that fire. They know that if the masses ever direct their heavy, collective outrage outward, the walls of the palace will collapse. And so they feed you a philosophy that tells you to extinguish your own flames. They teach you to view your own righteous anger as a disease of the mind. Stoicism is a beautiful shelter for enduring an unavoidable tragedy. But it is a catastrophic foundation for living a human life. You were not meant to be a cold, unfeeling pillar of stone, quietly enduring the abuses of the world inside a solitary citadel. The human vessel is meant to feel the heavy gravity of injustice. When the soil is rotten, you should not retreat into the fortress of your own mind and convince yourself that the rot does not matter. True philosophical strength is not found in accepting a broken reality. It is the raw, terrifying courage to step outside the walls, feel the heavy rain, and use your fire to burn the dying canopy to the ground. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy my videos, please like and subscribe to the channel. This is The Visual Philosopher. See you in another video.